Gordon Hayward has some injury drama, except it might be upped a little bit more this time. We'll talk about their win against the Timberwolves and shout out a legend all today on the Locked On Hornets podcast.
You're Locked On Hornets, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
In a minute, cuz we live.
It's Locked On Hornets, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. It's your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by PrizePicks. First-time users can receive a 100% instant deposit match up to $100 with promo code Locked On. That's PrizePicks.com, promo code Locked On. I'm Walker Mail. You can find me on WFNZ with Wes and Walker, 12 to 3 every weekday. Follow me on Twitter at Walker Mail. And that's Doug Branson. You can get more of his Hornets thoughts on his Substack, Every Hornets Boxscore, at everyhornetsboxscore.com. You'll see the write-up of a victory over the Minnesota Timberwolves on everyhornetsboxscore.com. The second win in a row for the Hornets, which is a winning streak as far as I'm concerned.
That's
I know you have to have
first one this season, going streaking.
Now, some people will say you have to have 3 for it to be a streak, but not in Charlotte Hornets land. We're going to go with 2, and so the Hornets are on a winning streak. Can they make it a third tonight against Boston? Going to be tough. We'll get to that in just a moment. We got to get to the Gordon Hayward drama here, though, Doug, first and foremost. Lots of injury drama surrounding Gordon Hayward and his time with the Charlotte Hornets, right? People kind of speculated this might happen after he signed the contract because of the bad ankle injury he suffered 5 minutes into his Boston Celtics tenure, already on the wrong side of 30 and all that, right? But this one, getting a little bit more drama. His wife's involved on social media. And so Gordon Hayward is out indefinitely with a left scapula injury, and it's a shoulder blade fracture. It was initially labeled left shoulder contusion, and Hayward attempted to play through it, but you did have something similar happen. I know you put this in there, by the way, with Darius Bazley. He missed a month and about 16 games or so for Darius Bazley, with something similar happening there, a left shoulder contusion, and then there was a fracture found out after all. Gordon Hayward's wife went to social media and expressed frustration with how the team labeled the injury early on, and she said this, quote, "He actually has a fractured scapula that they had him play with last game. That's why he could not move his arm up in the last game. Everyone who knows Gordon knows he has one goal, and that's to win and play the right way. He's the most truthful player/person you'd find. If he's not going to play, it's for something more than a bruise. I'm over them not protecting players. Just was talking with a young player's mom, and she was saying the same thing." End quote from Gordon Hayward's wife. What do you make of the injury? The Hornets deciding to play Gordon? His wife's reaction, lot to get and comb through here. What is the first thing you notice with this entire situation?
Well, I think his wife's frustrations are understandable. I mean, I think, if the team is labeling the injury a bruise when it really is a fracture, you would have to think, like, why would they do that? And the only thing I can come up with is that, they're trying to protect trade value, that it would be easier, down the line if he does, rehab this thing and come back, not to have it out there that, it was another bone fracture from a player known for a pretty prominent bone fracture. And this injury doesn't really have anything to do with what happened in Boston or any of the other injuries he's had. It's just, an unfortunate string of luck for him. But I would be understandably frustrated if the team was labeling an injury something that it wasn't. But we haven't heard Gordon Hayward be frustrated by that, at least publicly. Right. So it's all very interesting. I mean, more drama around injuries this season for the Charlotte Hornets. It's been an ongoing storyline.
So it matters, and this happens in the NFL all the time, especially surrounding concussions, but it can transition into other injuries, any part in NFL, NBA, whatever, and we're having it here with the Charlotte Hornets. How much responsibility do you put on the players to protect themselves, and how much responsibility do you put on the team to protect the players? This is an age-old question that we get to quite a bit within the NFL, but now when you're talking about it from a very Gordon-specific view, Doug, her frustration has to be amped 1,000 degrees because of the way that the fans have such a vitriol for Gordon Hayward, right? Especially with him getting injured again. And I would understand her frustration on all accounts. One, the Hornets in her mind not protecting her husband. Two, on the fans, where she's angry at every one of the Charlotte Hornets fans because they're calling for Gordon Hayward to play. When he gets injured, they're throwing out all kinds of names of him being a pansy, even worse, being a wuss, all that, and not being able to go out there on the court.
Because bruise, contusion's a bruise, and so you say, well, this guy's got a bruise, and it's like, oh, well, I hit my leg on the table, I got a bruise. It's it's obviously it's different, but that's how fans are going to think about it.
That's how fans think, right? Even though it is clearly different, it is obviously different, and you also have to understand too, like, Gordon Hayward probably does want to play because he's tired of that reputation as well. The trade value the Hornets want to protect, and Gordon Hayward.
That's speculation on my part. I'm trying to figure out why they would do if you and I don't know even if they knew it was a fracture, but why would you do that? Why would you say contusion if it really was a fracture?
It clearly benefits trade value for the Charlotte Hornets if it were to not come out as a fracture. Yes, I'm not saying the Hornets did this. That is not at all reported. That is not at all what I'm thinking. But it does protect trade value to some degree. And it also protects, and Gordon Hayward wants to come out there and play because he wants to shake this reputation, right? Like, I just think there's a lot of angles to view when Gordon Hayward goes out there on the court where his wife might be frustrated, and at home, I wonder if they agree. I wonder if they are the ones agreeing, you know what, hey, you're right, I'm really mad at the team too. And maybe he is, because you could be mad at the team for not coming out and saying, hey, Gordon's out because he has this fractured shoulder. However, I don't think the fans would take that any better. I think they'd still be, oh, well, here he is injured again, let's just go ahead and trade him as much as we can, get pennies on the dollar. I don't care.
Yeah, I mean, she would go on to walk it back. In another post, she said, just want to clear the air about my post on Friday night. I was frustrated with the injury report and the response to it. So they're going to your point, the frustration being with the response to Gordon Hayward being out with the shoulder injury, trying to come back, going out again. She goes on to say, I'm sorry it came across in a negative way. It's not at all how I feel about the organization. Now, I think that there's probably some more there than the walk back would suggest. I think there is, and look, I don't have much room to give this organization on doing things the right way anymore. I mean, I think, there is obviously a motivation for this team right now to win basketball games, and they do have a lot of other injuries. So, would I be surprised if the team was pressuring Gordon Hayward to play? No, absolutely not, especially when you take into consideration that they do have a lot of money invested into Gordon Hayward, and they have a lot of other players out. And, Steve Clifford has voiced many times how important having Gordon Hayward on the floor is. The problem, and why he is now, I think, out, indefinitely, is because having him out there, as we saw in the past couple of games he's played, having him out there with a dead arm, which is what the shoulder fracture does. When you fracture your shoulder blade, you can't lift your arm. We were seeing it when he shot. He was hurting it when he dunked. It was just painful to watch him play, and he wasn't as effective. So, and honestly, I think this helps them, Walker, that he's going to spend some time getting 100% if they do eventually bring him back, and aren't looking to trade him away. Having him at 100% is going to benefit them ultimately, but also it solves kind of some issues they may have with some jam up at the guard position. They may be able to refigure this starting lineup a little bit to actually benefit them in the short term.
Yeah, that's the other angle that you mentioned just earlier, is that the Hornets, if they are trying to win games, I think they are, because they haven't traded anybody yet. We know that they were at the beginning of the season. We know about the whole Steve Clifford not trying to be a part of a rebuild thing. So maybe Gordon Hayward is trying to go out there, and the Hornets are. I don't know if they're pressuring Gordon Hayward, but maybe they are. I don't know. This is always the whole, what is the training staff telling Steve Clifford? What is the higher ups in the organization, what are they getting from the training staff? It's like, well, no, he can go. He's not going to be very good because he can't lift his arm above this level. He can't go above shoulder level. So it's really hard to follow through.
It seems important to be able to lift your shoulder really as high as it will go in a game of basketball.
But so then it's like, well, can he be out there and dribble and pass? Yeah. But, reaction I don't know what the conversation is, right? Like, maybe there is 50% level that he can play as long as he doesn't do this. Do you just need to keep it below shoulder width or shoulder height? Then yeah, I don't know the conversations, but it's not the first drama surrounding injuries for them. LaMelo's different because fans wanted LaMelo to come back so badly, and people were frustrated with the team holding him back. People were frustrated with LaMelo.
But it's similar in that we've got now, I think, so 3 players now, LaMelo, DSJ, and Gordon, who have come back from injuries and then had them re-injure, that same area. And so it is, I think, a troubling trend of bringing either the team pushing players to come back early or allowing players to push themselves to come back early and now getting re-injured. And the bottom line is, look, if you're trying to win games, you have to have players that are healthy. And they're 6-14 right now. So that's 8 games back of 500. I was looking at this, Walker. In 13-14, when they made the playoffs with Big Al Jefferson and the All-NBA third team year, they were 8 games back of 500 in January. So and they ended up winning 43 games because they went on this crazy streak at the end of the year where they were putting together 6 and 7 game winning streaks. So, as focused on sort of the draft and Victor Wembanyama as some percentage of the fans are, there's more than a realistic shot. There's a lot of basketball left to play. There's a realistic shot that this team could get things pulled back together if they get healthy. But obviously bringing back players early is not helping this team.
No, it's not. And you do have to hope that some other teams ahead of you are going to continue to fall, which might happen with injuries that they suffer themselves. But right now, the Hornets are only a game up on the Detroit. Well, Detroit is 5-17. They're 2 games up on Detroit. They're 1 game up on Orlando from the bottom of the Eastern Conference standings. So that's where they are right now after their win against Minnesota, coming up next on the Locked On Hornets podcast.
Don't go to sleep on the Hornets just yet.
We're going to talk all about that victory. Kelly and the kids, baby, coming big against the Minnesota Timberwolves. Huge game from everybody there, and we'll get to that in just a moment. This episode is brought to you by Turo. Turo is the world's largest car-sharing marketplace. With Turo, you can book any car you want, whenever you want it, wherever you want it, from a community of local hosts. Browse a huge selection of vehicles for just about any occasion or budget across the U.S., U.K., Canada, and Australia. You can book a spacious SUV or minivan for a family road trip. You can get a classic or luxury car for a special event, birthday, or holiday. You can find affordable economy cars if you're on a budget and just need to get from A to B. Test drive that new electric vehicle you've always had your eye on to see how it fits in your everyday life. Many Turo hosts can even deliver the car right to you. Every trip is backed by liability insurance. Terms, conditions, and exclusions apply. Forget boring rental cars and find your drive at Turo.com. We'll recap the win against Minnesota next. Locked On Hornets
is Locked On Hornets.
They're running their rookies to Greensboro. They're driving them to Greensboro and then driving them back the same day to play in an NBA game. I cannot wait until the Hornets load manage.
It's time for more of the Locked On Hornets podcast.
Thanks for making Locked On Hornets your first listen today. Make your next listen Locked On Sports today. From the games that matter the most to the biggest stories in sports, go beyond the scoreboard and behind the scenes with local experts and insights only Locked On can provide. Hornets got the win against Minnesota. I didn't think they were going to get this victory. I thought it was going to be a terrible matchup. We know about the size that Minnesota brings. We know that they were actually starting to figure it out on offense. They were red hot coming into that game. Minnesota had won 5 straight. 4 of the 5 of those contests were on the road too. So it's not like getting home court advantage was expected to be this big advantage for Charlotte. And yet Kelly Oubre, Doug, continues to impress this season as much as I was not a fan, especially what he did second half. First half, he was just going bonkers last year. Second half, the shot started to wane and he just kept letting them fly. But he really does seem to be a guy that is practicing what he preached at the beginning of the year. And he talked about playing inside out. He talked about making better decisions. Now, he almost blew it entirely to hell when he had that shot in the corner and he was about to let it fly. And really the play was just to dribble the air out of the basketball and then get fouled. And whoo, Kelly wanted to, man. He is so hardwired to shoot at all costs. It does not matter if the game is on the line. There's an open shot. There is any daylight. Oh God, I got to shoot. Oh, okay. The fans are telling him, don't shoot. Don't do it. And then he finally passes in midair, and eventually the Hornets would get the win. But nonetheless, that mistake didn't happen, and Kelly Oubre ends up scoring 2 points shy of 30, 3 of 7 from three-point land, but really did a lot of his damage within 2-point range. Doug, I know you have dubbed him Tsunami Father for a reason.
Well, I think to me that deciding not to shoot that short corner three, he went into the short corner wilderness, Tsunami Poppy did, and he came out on the other side, Tsunami Father. The transformation is complete. He's showing up. Yeah, he's showing up. He was tempted. He was tempted in the wilderness to take that short corner three, to knock it down, like he's done so many times throughout his Hornets career and throughout his entire career in the NBA. And instead, he said, "No, I'm going to make the smart play here." Shout out to the courtside fans. I often rail against those fans because they make themselves a part of the game in a negative way. They'll obviously Purple Shirt Guy is the main example, but there are numerous examples of courtside fans trying to make themselves part of the entertainment package when they are there to be entertained. You are not part of the game. But in this instance, it's one of the rare instances where courtside fans actually make themselves part of the game in a positive way, reminding Kelly Oubre that all they have to do is get fouled, run the clock out, and they steal a win against Minnesota. I saw the line of this game, Walker, as high as 6 points. So 5.5,
I think, is what I saw it finalized. Maybe even 6 at the end. But yeah, that's exactly what I saw.
So, big time doggies, almost 2 possession doggies. No, it is 2 possession doggies if you're 5 or 6. So, yeah, I think this was a huge win. I put it in my good win column. Got off to a little bit of a bad start. But it was contributions across the board. Clifford mentioned this was a full team win, and it really was. Second straight game, you're getting big contributions from Theo Maledon. He has come back on with DSJ going out of the lineup. He's been huge. You also got Kai Jones with this jump stop free throw line jumper. That's apparently a thing. Bouknight had some pull up threes. He got some action. Come on, everybody. The Baby B energy was all over the place. It was exciting. Everybody was stinging.
Absolutely, they were. It was stinging, man. Kai Jones. That's probably a story that deserves a lot more. I did want to just kind of touch on a few other things. You mentioned you put it in the good win column. Yeah, I think it's one of the 3 best wins of the year. Not a lot to pick from, but the ones it contends with, it's Golden State still probably has to be number 1, 120, 113 in overtime early on to get to 500. Golden State's number 1 win of the year. Atlanta's a good argument too, especially with that happening.
They were double digit dogs in that one, and they won by 126 to 109. Huge win. That
one has a little bit more merit in hindsight. Even then it was a big win, no doubt. But I think in hindsight, because Atlanta actually has played well, because DeJounte and Trey are playing well, but I put Minnesota 3rd. Philadelphia was not a big win. We would have
because everybody was out. Yeah, no Harden, no Maxey, no Embiid. You were expected to win that game. They actually were 4.5 point favorites in that game. So I do this quick caps thing so that I can remember what happened throughout the season, and I have categories of win, loss, good win, bad loss, and I have 3 good wins on the season: Atlanta, Golden State, this one against Minnesota. I have 2 bad losses: the one that they had in October to Orlando, and the one where Washington was missing Beal and they lost by 8 points despite being 2-point favorites. So 3 good wins, 2 bad losses, and because of injuries, a lot of losses that were pretty much expected at the time. But yeah, this one's huge, and lots of contributions. They were rebounding well. They were lucky, though. I want to throw a little bit of cold water on this. They got extremely fortunate in this one, Walker, that Karl Anthony Towns was a steaming pile of doo-doo in this one. He was throwing up brick after brick. And also just the team itself. Nada texted me during the game just to mention how Minnesota was playing like a bunch of idiots. It was just crazy. They were throwing away the basketball, crazy turnovers, stuff that would have just outraged me if I were a Minnesota fan. They really threw this game away. Big opportunities for Minnesota to come in. They were on a winning streak. They had played well over the past 5 games against Eastern Conference teams, and they really threw this one away. But the Hornets, to their credit, were there and available to take it away from them.
They were shooting at a damn high level coming in. I mean, I think Anthony Edwards shot 50% in the previous game on pretty high volume, and he was the guy that shot the least efficient among any of the other starters you're talking about for Minnesota. And that was in the game coming in to that contest against Charlotte. Now, it got close at the end, too. But the third quarter that Charlotte had, scoring 39 to Minnesota's 21, that was enough of a cushion they provided themselves in order to hold on. I do want to mention, I think this is the biggest story real quickly, Doug, before we move on to the last segment. Kai Jones is the biggest story. This thing matters now. This thing matters for the future. The fact that he's coming in and giving hard minutes and making the most of it, 12 rebounds for Kai Jones. We know all the athleticism. I keep going back to Kai Jones, discussing what it was like to transition to the NBA as even younger than he is now, right? He's already a kid. And when he was making that transition, he said, look, I'm learning that you can't just dunk everything. I like that he's unlearning that. No, you can. Just go ahead and dunk everything.
Dunk it. Just dunk everything.
You know, if you want to have the jump stop, fade away, free throw jumper, okay. Like it was an air ball the first time you tried it this season.
Well, fadeaway. So let's make a distinction here, because the pull-up free throw line jumper has been effective. It's the fadeaway that he shot where you're going, okay. There's always, here's the thing. In every game, I think you can look back. I'm going to say I'm almost 99% certain that if you look back in each of the games that Kai Jones has gotten these extended minutes, you can find one amazing highlight dunk. You can find one jump shot where you go, wow, I didn't know you had that in your game. And then you can find one play where you go, okay, Kai, back it down.
Easy.
Like too
Easy.
much.
Yep. Steve Clifford, Kai Jones is a Steve guy and vice versa. Steve Clifford talked about the guys that he was impressed with most. He mentions DSJ, of course, Jalen McDaniels, Nick Richards, Kai Jones. Oddly enough, it's been very hard. I've made this point a couple times on WFNZ. You and I pretty much played a game who was going to be a Steve guy. And we were sure JT Thor was going to be a Steve Clifford guy. We were sure James Bouknight was not going to be a Steve Clifford guy. And he clearly was getting a lot. He's back in the rotation, by the way, playing again. And the injuries. I understand injuries. He did what he look. 8 points. I'll take 2 3-pointers from James Bouknight, but he got back in. Kai Jones winning over Steve Clifford with minutes he's getting in the regular season and his attitude, which Steve Clifford has talked about a lot. Which I don't know how you can dislike Kai and his attitude. He's the best human there is on the team. I mean, it's just how it is. Yeah, man, awesome stuff. That matters now. That matters for the future. The project, just putting some pieces together. It's big.
Well, here's the thing to watch with Kai Jones, because obviously as fans, we're going to look at that play that he had at the beginning of the fourth quarter where Nick Richards gets the block on Gobert, puts it out into the break, and then Kai Jones goes way up top of the gym for the alley-oop. I mean, that's the future. That's the year 2000. That's what we're all going to get excited about. What's going to continue to get him more minutes is his ability to rebound the basketball. And he has done that very well, both on the offensive end and the defensive end. He's gotten more opportunities because they've played teams that are particularly big underneath. Okay. And, and they play big. And so Kai Jones makes sense to put into those lineups. But I think he's going, the more he gets accustomed to playing defense at the 4, the better he can show himself there, the more effort he gives on the boards, the more minutes I think he'll earn. It's really exciting to see for the future, not just for this season, but for many seasons to come.
All right, let's talk a little bit more about that coming up next on the Locked On Hornets podcast.
Don't go to sleep on the Hornets just yet.
I want to give some final thoughts on the game against Minnesota. Plus, I do want to shout out a legend in Charlotte Hornets lore that passed away this weekend. We'll get to that in just a moment. But this episode is brought to you by PrizePicks. PrizePicks is an app where you can pick 2 to 6 players, and if they will go score more or less than the PrizePicks projection, you can win up to 25 times your money on any entry. Yeah, 25 times. Ridiculous. No competing against other people. It's just you versus the projections available. PrizePicks offers projections on any sport that you watch. It includes the NBA, the NFL, the MLB, but also college football, men's and women's college basketball, soccer, WNBA, esports, NASCAR, disc golf, boxing, Euro basketball, cricket, so much more. Entries can be made in 60 seconds or less. It's that easy. You also have safe and fast withdrawals, currently operational in over 30 states and Canada. You can download the PrizePicks app or go to prizepicks.com to sign up and play daily fantasy sports. First-time users can receive a 100% instant deposit match up to $100 with promo code Locked On. If you deposit $100, PrizePicks gives you $100. If you deposit $50, PrizePicks gives you $50. You get the idea by now. Just don't forget to enter promo code Locked On at sign up for an instant deposit match up to $100. Finishing thoughts on the game coming up next. Locked On Hornets.
This is Locked On Hornets.
This amazing photo of Mitch Kupchak standing next to Steve Clifford in what looks like I think if you typed into one of those AI image generators, shotgun wedding, this is the picture that would come up, because Steve Clifford looks absolutely
so good.
Shocked.
There's not a background. Underrated part of this. It's just a blank white screen, so you're not having any Hornets graphics. You don't even have the courtesy to bring in what
blank white faces, too. Blank white faces.
It's time for more of the Locked On Hornets podcast.
Let's finish up our thoughts on this Minnesota game. Doug, I know you had a couple more points you wanted to make. Let's rapid fire this to get out on time. What do you have for us to start the segment off?
Well, I mentioned Theo Maledon. I mean, I think they got to find some money, got to find a spot for him. He's been too important to this team. You know, even when DSJ comes back, you know, I think they've got to find some room in the rotation for Theo. You know, the way he just commands the pick and roll on the offensive end and then defensively, he's doing a lot of the same things. Maybe there's too much room. I don't know. They've got to figure something out, though, because Theo has been spectacular. Awesome. Minnesota almost came back in this game. This was not one that they won easily. Obviously, they had to, you know, have a big third quarter to even get in the game, but then Minnesota made a run at the end. It was nice to see the Hornets finally make some plays at the end of a fourth quarter that were positive, that made the difference, including Mason Plumlee, who had a couple of tips, offensive rebounds that really made a difference. Terry Rozier hit a wide open three with 3 minutes to go in the fourth quarter that staved off that attack that was opened by a Plumlee offensive rebound. That put them up 4. They had to make some more plays after that, but that Terry Rozier, after going 0 of 5 to start the game, the shooting is still not there for Terry Rozier, but he does come up with a huge open 3, knocks it down. He's still a certified gamer. He just has to find that three-point shot. The Hornets could have won this game easily. They could have won a number of these games that they've lost over the past couple of weeks. They could have won easily had Kelly Oubre and Terry Rozier knocked down a few shots, but we're not going to blame Kelly because he's doing so much else. But Terry has to play better. He has to shoot better.
His assists are way up. Terry's stats are, if you look at his assists,
because he's playing point guard, and that's part of why he's not shooting well, is because he's playing out of position. He's looking to help others, and I think it's affecting his ability to shoot.
Yeah, exactly my point. 38% from field, 30.1% from 3 on nearly 9 attempts per game. So the shot from deep is not working at all. If he, this number would be the worst he's shot in the league since his rookie year, when he only appeared in 39 games, played 8 minutes of those 39 games, and shot 22%. So, and for all intents and purposes, this is the worst he's ever shot from 3. And we'll see if he's able to get back on track at some point. I believe he will. He's a bona fide shooter. You can call him certified gamer, also a certified shooter. So that's going to climb up. And
you know how they always talk about regressing to the mean. I would like for once to progress to the mean. I need Terry to progress back to the mean. That would be nice. Yeah.
But the assists are up, and I do think, I was giving him a lot of credit at the beginning of the season, making smarter decisions as a point guard. So Terry, still the shooting.
Well, they got to find some way to get more minutes with him at the off guard. I mean, I'm just gonna keep yelling this on the show until it happens. I get they are crazy because they've had so many good point guards come into the rotation with Theo and DSJ, but somehow they're still out of point guards because DSJ is hurt again, because LaMelo is out for an extended period of time. So, but they've got to find some ways to get Theo and Terry on the floor at the same time, because that works.
The 6 turnovers not good from Terry either in this one. PJ got in foul trouble, kind of opening the door for more Kai Jones minutes, and PJ, shot well from 2-point range at least. That was helpful. 3-point range not really working for him, but did finish with 16 points, and so there's the score from PJ. So that was really about it for the Minnesota game. Do you have any other final thoughts before we move on?
Well, just on the PJ foul stuff, I wasn't bothered by it. I don't think Clifford was either. He's been bothered by fouling this season, but PJ being aggressive on Cat was the right move. Trying to take him out of his rhythm, and he was way outside of his rhythm. Finally, the Hornets do a good job, or at least get lucky with a star not shooting the basketball well, not playing well, and they take advantage of it. Unlike when they played Washington the last time, they got one of these type of games from Kristaps Porzingis, and they couldn't take advantage of it. So I'm glad to see the Hornets shedding some of those previous lost woes. This could be good. Now, Boston's going to be tough. I'm not, even if Tatum doesn't play, I'm not giving them much of an opportunity there. They could shock the world, not giving them much of an opportunity there, but good things coming, I think, for the Charlotte Hornets.
You mentioned a star not shooting well. That's the formula for a lot of teams to win. Hornets no different. Steph Curry. Remember when they got the last big win? Steph Curry did not shoot well at all. DSJ, a big part of that.
Down.
And here's Karl Anthony Towns not playing well. I believe you called him a steaming pile of poopy is what I believe you called him.
Doo-doo.
Doo-doo. Sorry, poopy. You said doggy.
Get it right. Come on.
Sorry,
this is a
right.
professional show. Quote me correctly.
It is a little bit different. We did get a report, by the way, with just in the hour from Shams Charania that the Dallas Mavericks plan to sign Kemba Walker and Facundo Campazzo. That's what sources tell The Athletic. So Kemba going to the Dallas Mavericks. This is the Mavericks acquisition that was supposed to happen, 5 years ago, Doug? Remember Dallas was in the Kemba Walker sweepstakes, and eventually he goes to the Boston Celtics, but it's happening now a little bit later than I'm sure Luka Doncic would have liked, but it's happening now with Kemba Walker. Any thoughts on Kemba going to Dallas?
Oh, I'm glad. I'm glad he's finding a home. I was a little worried that this was it for Kemba. I think any Hornets fan that is a serious Hornets fan has to be happy for Kemba to land anywhere. I know that there was a large portion of the fan base that wanted Kemba Walker to land in Charlotte, but even though they are down point guards at this point and do have an open roster spot, I don't think it would have made much sense to bring Kemba back because, again, eventually you're going to get LaMelo back. Eventually you're going to get DSJ back, and now you've got too many point guards. So it wouldn't have made much sense, but I'm happy that he's going to land in that particular situation because Dallas, they're under 500 now. They're desperate for somebody to come in and give them a little bit of energy, a little bit of spark, a little bit of punch, and that's exactly what Kemba Walker can do. So shouts to Kemba. Good luck.
I think I heard on the Zach Lowe podcast that Luka Doncic is on a historic level usage rate wise, maybe putting up the third highest usage rate of all time. So I wonder if that actually suits Kemba better. Just as he's aging, we don't need to give you a lot of responsibility with the basketball. Just kind of run around and get ready for some spot up threes. Can that happen for Kemba? And so I wonder if that's something that
that's interesting, right? Because he made so many waves in Charlotte as not particularly a catch and shoot 3-point shooter, but somebody that could set up his own threes, through the pick and roll, finding that little bit of space and knocking it down. So it'll be interesting to see if that's what happens if he transitions to a catch and shoot 3-point player. And could be fun to watch.
Is there anything left in Kemba to give you some Luka bench minutes that Kemba can help? Probably not, but I'm sure
anything left in the knees. Yeah, I mean that's the big thing. Yeah.
Last thing, just on a serious note, want to give our condolences to the Valancourt family. Jerry V, as you might know him, passed away this weekend due to a heart condition that he was diagnosed with 25 years ago. If you don't know who Jerry V is, he actually came back to the Charlotte market in 2017 with ESPN 730, now 730 The Game. I worked with him for a couple of years over at 730 ESPN Charlotte. And Jerry V before that was an absolute Charlotte radio institution, a legend, calling games at WFNZ, calling games for the Charlotte Hornets, and was working on, WBT, I believe, as well. So really on a bunch of different platforms here in the city of Charlotte. When the Hornets would go to New Orleans, Jerry V would follow, spend I think, about 15 years there in New Orleans before Marty Herney of ESPN 730 decided to bring Jerry V back in 2017 and hosted a radio show, the Jerry V Show. Hosted that for a couple of years and really quite a legend. I was interested to see the response to his passing on Twitter and just on social media. You know, Doug, I was not one of these sports radio junkies, despite that being my profession now. I grew up just watching a lot of sports media, right? Sports Center, you know, local sports coverage. I was not doing a lot of listening in the radio, but a lot of kids were. A lot of kids were listening with their fathers growing up in the car, and they would hear Jerry V. I've seen some of our listeners discuss how they would go to radio, right? They would go to WFNZ if something big happened with the Hornets or with the Carolina Panthers, and they wanted to hear Jerry V's perspective. You know, Throw Him in the Pool, a classic segment. His bouts with Joe the Fan, who I also give my condolences to. Great guy. Joe the Fan just became a P1 over the years, and, you know, really, really hurting for Joe the Fan and the Valancourt family. You know, look, Jerry V was demanding. Jerry V had his vision of what he wanted his show to be. And I'll tell you what, man, bleeping talented at solo radio, like crazy good at solo radio. I'm not sure he messed up more than 5 times in the 2 years that I knew him in the twilight of his career. Never, ever boring. In fact, the least boring host I think I've ever known or got to hear in my entire life, whether you disagreed with him or agreed with him, whether you just didn't like his on-air content or not, you can never, ever call him boring, which is what a lot of radio hosts will say is the number one thing you can't be. You know, really always great to me. Ask about my aspirations, asked about my goals. I got to work with him on, you know, probably, I don't know, 5, 6, 7 shows, something like that, producing and co-hosting. Always fantastic. And passing away this weekend, Jerry V did, I believe, at the age of 72. So really a Charlotte sports legend, and was happy to be able to work with him, man, to be able to work with a legend and to know him. Pretty special. So just wanted to give the thoughts and prayers and do that, all that sort of stuff towards the Valancourt family. Doug, I know you got to, you know, hear him at least later on in his career as well.
Well, yeah, and he interviewed, you know, I did a couple of hits on his show.
Right.
And yeah, he would always challenge you. Like it was always interesting to go on that. Because sometimes you go on and do these radio hits and, you know, like I'm doing radio hits for your show right now, and we're all buddies. And so we talk like buddies, and, you know, but he was very much, you know, he wanted to debate you. He wanted to challenge what you were saying. And that was always really interesting and made me, I think, a better analyst to be able to go and to his arena and talk about basketball with him. But he always did it in a respectful way. And, you know, he was such an integral part of Charlotte sports at a time when, you know, when they get the Hornets, it really turned Charlotte into a big city. And he, you know, he and a lot of others were a part of that just original crew. And I think that's what helped make them Charlotte institutions. And then to go to New Orleans and do it again, you know, to be part of 2 markets like that, I think is a really special thing. So yeah, Jerry V, one of the GOATs of Charlotte radio and Charlotte sports media. So yeah, condolences to the family.
Absolutely. And proud of the work that he did during Hurricane Katrina doing news talk down in New Orleans as well. That's something he talked about, something that he discussed, seeing a city come together like that, being the voice.
I just thought of every time I did his show, I would go on something about, you know, Nick Batum's shooting percentage or something, and he'd go, Doug, you know, there's a saying. You know what that saying is? Like, I don't know, Jerry. He would give me just some great like basketball saying and then go into a spiel. I just love that. I mean, he was great. It was awesome.
There will never be another Jerry V. That brain, that personality, you just can't match it. And I think that's what you look for in a host, being that unique, to be one of one and to be pretty comfortable and realize there will never be another one like Jerry V. Yeah, really Charlotte legend. And again, condolences to his family, because I'm sure they're going through a really tough time, but they're taking it, you know, it's interesting to hear them say, chase your crazy, which was a saying from Jerry V. You know, that this had been something they were happy to have 25 years more than, you know, I mean, they thought they were not going to get nearly that when he was diagnosed with that heart condition. So I'm glad that he lived a happy, full life. That's one thing you can say sure about Jerry V. Thanks for making us your first listen every single day. We're free and available anywhere you get your pods. Make your second listen Locked On Sports today. From the games that matter the most to the biggest stories in sports, go beyond the scoreboard and behind the scenes with local experts and insights only Locked On can provide. Locked On Sports today, available on this app, YouTube, and wherever you get your podcast. Have a great rest of your day. We'll be back to recap the Celtics game tomorrow.